Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is the second news on 24th February newspaper front page dawn. RO proposes repolling at 14 stations in Daska. Records submitted by presiding officers, PML and candidate show huge difference in voter turnout. PTI gets 2 days to furnish record by Iftihar A. Khan. Islamabad, the returning officer RO for recently held by election in Daska proposed on Tuesday repolling at 14 controversial polling stations while providing to the Election Commission of Pakistan a comparative chart of forms 45 submitted by the presiding officers and the PMLN candidate from the constituency showing a huge difference in voters' turnout, votes polled, and rejected ballots. The report was presented to the Commission when it took up a position filed by PMLN candidate from the constituency, Nashin Iftikhar. The five-member bench which heard the case was headed by Chief Election Commissioner, CEC, Sikandar Sultan Raja. According to the paper submitted by Ms. Iftikhar, she secured 5,000 votes from the controversial polling stations against 6,705 obtained by her rival Ali Asjad Mali of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI. The number of rejected votes was just 139 and the turnout remained 45.16%. On the other hand, according to the Form 45 received by the RO from the presiding officers after an inordinate delay of around 6 hours, and the gap between votes secured by the PTI and PMLN candidates was 9,263 instead of 1,705. According to the form, Mr. Mully secured 12,763 votes and Ms. Iftikhar only 3,500 votes. The form puts the number of rejected votes at 1,731 and the turnout at 75.34%. The RO's report, a copy of which is available with Dawn, discloses that only 13 out of the total 20 presiding officers who had mysteriously disappeared for the entire night after vote count at their polling stations came to join the inquiry conducted by the Provincial Election Commissioner and the Provincial Joint Elections Commissioner of Punjab in Daska, and that too after a delay of over 3 hours. They had been called at 1 p.m. but started arriving one by one after 4 p.m. Of the 13 presiding officers, 8 were interviewed one by one. The replies of almost all the presiding officers were stereotyped that they were able to complete the counting process by 10 to 10:30 p.m. and started back journey into the office of returning officer on the transport provided by the Election Commission and in escort of police, but due to fog, they reached the office of returning officer at about 4:30 a.m. And most of them started their phone batteries were low and they were having no chargers in response to the questions that they were supposed to send snapshots of the result of the count through WhatsApp, but they did not do the same, the report reads. The report says that there was no discrepancy in the record of 3 out of the total 23 polling stations from where the presiding officers had disappeared. The returning officer has proposed Repolling at 14 polling stations where there was a marked difference between number of polled votes in two different sets of Form 45. During the course of the hearing, the returning officer appeared to have changed his position when he said the administration was cooperating with him. He said 19 presiding officers could not be contacted and one of them did not attend phone call. The RO said that there was distance of 30 to 40 kilometers between the polling stations from where the result was awaited and his office. Answering a question, he said, in normal weather, it would have taken around 2 hours to cover the distance. On this, the CEC asked whether police were contacted on wireless. The RO said the police also could not be contacted as weather was not fine that day. He said some presiding officers said their car had broken down. ECP, a member from KP, just retired, Irshad Kasser, asked if the commission's driver had been asked if the car had broken down. Member from Punjab, Justice retired Altaf Ibrahim Qureshi, asked if an attempt had been made to trace location of the missing presiding officers. The CEC told the RO he appeared to be worried when he contacted the commission on the election night, and he replied there was a crowd outside his office. Mr. Qureshi taunted the RO by saying, "You appear to be backtracking on what you said earlier." Salman Akhtar Raja, the counsel for the PMLN candidate, said the press release issued by the ECP after the polling was historic and it said it all. He said the disappearance of the presiding officers was meant to divert attention from rigging in the entire constituency. He said on the polling day, an atmosphere of fear was created by firing, and COVID 19 standard operating procedures were used to prevent people from voting. He said documents pertaining to the situation in the constituency would be submitted along with affidavits. PMLN candidate Nashin Iftikhar said on the complaint of stoppage of voting, DSP threatened to open fire at her. ATI candidate Ali Asjad Mali said the 23 polling stations were his stronghold and claimed that the PMLN would lose the election after inclusion of results of these polling stations. His counsel, Ali Bukhari, sought a week's time from the ECP to submit record. Justice retired Kessler said the ECP could go for reopening some or all polling stations. The ECP had adjourned the hearing till Thursday. Meanwhile, Federal Information Minister Shibli Faraz has said Prime Minister Imran Khan has always accepted challenges and has made an important announcement on the demand of the PMLN for repolling at 23 polling stations. He chided the opposition by saying those who promoted corruption wanted the secret ballot for Senate votes. He said the people knew what were the motives of those opposing open voting. He said the final decision regarding NA75 Tuska by poll would be taken by the ECP. In a related development, the Free and Fair Election Network, in a report on the bypolls, has observed that the happenings in NA75 warrant bold actions by the ECP to stop the militarization of future elections. The firing incidents outside the polling stations and in NH75 and overnight disappearance of presiding officers of 20 polling stations and the critical election material, including ballots, resulted from the failure of police and security forces who were responsible for safe and complete delivery of election material to the office of the returning officer. To tackle situations like this, the Commission should consider exercising its powers under Section 55 of Elections Act 2017. It should penalize, as per law, all public servants and election officials who are found involved in obstructing the polls' impartial and fair conduct and influencing results, the report said. The report reads. And in the end, the formal request, if you have not yet, please subscribe our channel and press the like and bell button to get the fresh from us. Thank you for watching. Have a nice time. Goodbye.